Part 21. The Prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 201. Seeing her standing still, Xiao Jinyan urged, "What are you doing standing still?" Shen Chuwei was a little embarrassed. "Your Highness, I would like to go to the convenience store." Xiao Jinyan paused after hearing this. "Go ahead." "Thank you, Your Highness." Shen Chuwei rubbed the soles of his feet and ran out quickly, closing the door carefully before leaving. Xiao Jinyan looked at her anxious look. She was just waiting for her to take a bath, so she was so shy. Shen Chuwei ran out all the way, pushed open the latrine door and went in. She really wanted convenience because she was nervous. Why did Xiao Jinyan suddenly want him to wait in the shower? Doesn't he like others watching? After solving the physical problem, she returned to the guest room with doubts. By this time, Xiao Jinyan had almost finished bathing. When he saw Shen Chuwei coming back, he chuckled. "Why are you coming back now?" Shen Chu said with a guilty conscience, "I have a stomachache." Xiao Jinyan was non-committal. "Let someone take a bath instead." Shen Chuwei had the water changed and stepped into the tub. She was surrounded by warm water, not to mention how comfortable it was. The fatigue from traveling for the past few days has also diminished a lot. Xiao Jinyan's voice suddenly came from behind the screen. "Xiaju, have you got your clothes?" Shen Chuwei was startled, and hurriedly looked at his clothes, and found that he had taken them all, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. "Your Highness, I've got all the clothes." Xiao Jinyan lay on the bed and smiled lightly. "That's good." Shen Chuwei came out of the shower and saw Xiao Jinyan on Xiao Jinyan's bed, looking tired. She came over, took off her shoes, and climbed into bed. Xiao Jinyan could never tire of watching Shen Chuwei climb on the bed. Every time she found it funny how she climbed on the bed with her butt raised. Shen Chuwei opened the quilt and lay down, revealing his little head. "Your Highness, please sleep." "Yes." Xiao Jinyan blew out the lamp, then lay down, took the person into his arms, nestled his cheek into her neck, and smelled her unique sweet fragrance. Shen Chu didn't dare to move even slightly. It was as if there was some big stove next to him, and it was very hot. What happened during this time? Why does Xiao Jinyan have the habit of sleeping with something in his arms? Every time I hold myself, I can't fall asleep immediately. Very affecting sleep. Is the habit of holding something to sleep inherited? Shen Chuwei thought about it and fell asleep. Although the beauty in his arms gave Xiao Jinyan some ideas, he was a little tired from traveling for days. He didn't want to consummate his marriage with Shen Chuwei casually. The group continued their journey early the next morning, and finally arrived at Yongqian City in the afternoon, which was also their purpose this time. Yongqian Street is prosperous and covers an extremely large area. Wei Qi found the largest restaurant, Yongxing Restaurant. After a few days' journey, everyone had enough to eat and drink, and everyone slept deeply tonight. Next day, Shen Chuwei slept until 3 o'clock in the morning. When he opened his eyes, Xiao Jinyan was no longer in bed. Chengzi came in to wait and wash. Shen Chuwei asked, "Do you know where your Highness is going?" Chengzi shook her head. "I don't know, I took Wei Qi and Qin Xiao out early in the morning." After washing up, Chengzi served breakfast. Shen Chuwei was hungry for a long time now. When he saw that the food in front of him looked pretty good, he ate a lot and it tasted good. After eating and drinking, Shen Chuwei hugged the snowball and went to the yard to bask in the sun. "I don't know what the master is doing here this time. This is the first time for the slave to travel far away." Chengzi's excitement was gone, and she became more and more excited. "I have never traveled far. I heard that Yongqian City is the second city in Daxia. It is a prosperous area and there must be a lot of snacks. It would be great if I have a chance to go out tonight." At this time, after listening to Xiao Jinyan and what they heard when they met her, they were looking forward to going to the snack street in the evening. Just when Shen Chu was looking forward to it, a man with a thin face walked towards him. He saluted with a smile and said, "Young master, I heard your conversation just now. It seems that you are not from here." Shen Chu took a few glances at the man in front of him. He was wearing green clothes and looked like a scholar. Like Xiao Jinyu, he was holding a folding fan in his hand. She nodded. "Well, is something wrong?" "I am a local, my surname is Qian. I am very familiar with this place. The snack street is in the southeast alley. There are many people during the day. Young master wants to go." "I can give you directions," young master Qian said. Chengzi refused. "Thank you for your kindness. The master is not here, so we can't go out easily." Mr. Qian smiled and continued, "Didn't you say that your master is out? The snack street is not far away, just a few steps away." Shen Chu was a little tempted. "Is it really just a few steps away?" Mr. Qian patted his chest and assured, "That's natural. How could I deceive the young master?" Shen Chuwei held Chun 11's hand, a little excited. "Chun 11, let's go take a look." Chengzi was a little worried. "Little master, the master hasn't come back yet, how can we leave? If the master comes back and finds that we are not here, he will be angry." "It's okay, let's go back quickly." Shen Chuwei pulled Chengzi to stand up. "Please lead the way." Mr. Qian laughed proudly in his heart and finally took the bait. "Okay, please come with me." Shen Chuwei followed Mr. Qian out of Yongxing restaurant. After walking for a long time, the further we walked, the farther we went. Chengzi was a little worried. "Little master, I feel something is wrong." Shen Chuwei pointed at the wall in front and said, "There's something wrong. There's a dead end ahead." "Young master, you are so tender, you can sell for a good price." Master Qian laughed, looking at them as if he saw money. Two burly men came behind him, and they were obviously thugs. Chengzi was so scared that her legs were shaking, but she still protected Shen Chuwei. "You are so bold, you can't arrest my master." Master Qian ordered, "Catch them." The two burly men had no sympathy for women, and they didn't take them seriously, and they went up to arrest them. Shen Chuwei pulled Chengzi behind her, grabbed the wrists of the two and squeezed them hard, and only heard a scream. The acupuncture points squeezed by Shen Chuwei were so accurate and fierce that even a cow couldn't stand it. Then she raised her foot and kicked the chins of the two men. With 2 clicks, a mouthful of teeth broke and bleeding. Seeing this, Master Qian turned around and tried to run away. Shen Chuwei picked up a brick from the ground and hit Master Qian on the back of his head accurately, and he fell to the ground unconscious. Shen Chuwei patted the dust on his hands. "Do you really think I'm so easy to bully?" Chengzi felt that she had knocked down 3 grown men in just a blink of an eye. She looked at Shen Chuwei with admiration. "My lady, you are so awesome." Shen Chuwei smiled. "Of course, how can you get out of here without some kung fu?" The two of them left the alley and asked about the snack street by the way, only to find out that the distance was a bit far, so they had to go home. Xiao Jinyan came back at dusk. At the table, Shen Chuwei didn't dare to mention what happened during the day, for fear that Xiao Jinyan would be angry. After dinner, Xiao Jinyan asked someone to prepare hot water for a bath. Shen Chuwei didn't even have the chance to ask about going out to shop for snacks. While waiting, Xiao Jinyan's slightly low voice suddenly came from behind the screen. "Xiaju, I forgot to take my clothes. First, 20,000 will be updated, and another 10,000 will be updated during the day, which can ensure that the heroine's bedtime will be in the 30,000 burst update." The young master got the free time wrong, thinking it was the 20th. "Good night, my dears. Please vote for the monthly ticket and the recommendation ticket. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading." Author, Gongzi Iyun Si. Chapter 202. Chapter 202. Are you angry? Did you forget to take your clothes? Shen Shuwei swept her eyes around the room and finally stopped at the bed. On the clean quilt, neatly stacked clothes were placed. Xiao Jinyan always remembered to take his clothes. Why did he forget this time? She came to the bed and picked up the clothes. The material of the clothes the prince wore felt soft and smooth in her hands. She knew it was high-quality material at a glance. Although she didn't know much about fabrics, she could still feel it. Shen Shuwei came to the screen with doubts and walked straight in. She heard a crash and saw Xiao Jinyan standing up from the bathtub. She was stunned on the spot. She should not look at anything indecent, but she stared at Xiao Jinyan. The abdominal muscles that I couldn't see before, this time I saw them clearly. The abdominal muscles were firm and the muscle lines were perfect. They were not exaggerated, but very pleasing to the eye. Sexy mermaid line, without a single cover. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart, Xiao Jinyan's figure is really super good, even. Her sight moved down involuntarily. Xiao Jinyan had already wiped the water droplets on his body with a towel. Naturally covered the important parts. Xiao Jinyan looked up at Shen Shuwei standing there motionless, but her eyes were staring at her, as if she saw something extraordinary. Her fair cheeks turned red at an obvious speed, as red as a ripe apple. He called out softly, Xiaoju. Shen Shuwei reacted and said awkwardly, Your Highness, I'm here to bring you clothes. After saying that, she put the clothes on the stool and turned around and ran. It was so fast that Xiao Jinyan didn't have time to call her. She was so shy now. What should she do when she was sleeping with him? Shen Shuwei hugged the snowball, stroking it while calming herself down that she had seen something she shouldn't have seen just now. She really didn't mean to see it just now. Who made him suddenly stand up from the bathtub? The figure is still so good, I can't help but want to admire it. Xiao Jinyan listened to Shen Shuwei's inner drama while putting on his clothes, looked down at his figure, and didn't comment. He put on his clothes and walked out from behind the screen, and saw Shen Shuwei holding Sichuan sitting on a small stool, like a child who had done something wrong. Shen Shuwei had taken a bath before Xiao Jinyan came back. Seeing him come out, she was a little embarrassed to even look at him, and wanted to go to bed with Sichuan. Sichuan's blue eyes looked at the two of them in confusion, as if curious about what happened behind the screen just now. Xiao Jinyan came over, picked up Sichuan by the back of the neck, and threw it on a chair beside him. Sichuan whined, landed steadily on the chair, and looked at Xiao Jinyan aggrievedly. If it could speak, it would definitely ask, Why did you throw me? Shen Shuwei watched Sichuan being thrown out like this, and felt a little distressed for it. Xiao Jinyan said, Don't hold the cat when you sleep. I know she didn't want to sleep with Sichuan, she just wanted to feel safe. After Shen Shuwei lay down in the quilt, she got used to sleeping on her side. Thinking of Xiao Jinyan always holding her to sleep these days, she couldn't sleep well. She turned around and faced Xiao Jinyan. At this time, Xiao Jinyan had just turned off the light, opened the quilt and lay down. Shen Shuwei asked, Your Highness, have you been a little irritated these days? Xiao Jinyan said lightly, No, it's just that there is a difficult case that I need to investigate. Oh, she also wanted to prescribe some prescriptions to Xiao Jinyan to remove heat, so as not to hurt his body. Xiao Jinyan stretched out his hand and hugged her into his arms. She was very soft and comfortable when hugged. The fragrance on her body was also very good. Shen Shuwei fell asleep in trepidation. The next day, a group of officers and soldiers suddenly came to Yongxing restaurant, led by Luo's Hixian of Yongqian City, wearing official uniforms. Wei Qi shouted angrily, Who is coming? Luo Cheng glanced at the people in front of him and asked, I am Luo Cheng, the magistrate of Yongqian City. May I ask where the governor is? Xiao Jinyan recognized the man as Luo Cheng, the magistrate of Yongqian City, and said, I am the magistrate. Xiao Jinyan used the official title of the governor to go out this time, and concealed his identity to avoid unnecessary trouble. Luo Cheng and his subordinates saluted the governor to greet him, and people knelt on the ground. I didn't know that the governor was coming in person, and I failed to welcome him from afar. It is my fault. Xiao Jinyan said, "Get up." After getting up, Luo's Hixian said with a flattering smile, "Governor, I have arranged a place to stay. I wonder what the governor thinks." Xiao Jinyan just had this idea, so he nodded and agreed, "It's just what I want." In this way, Shen Chuwei followed Xiao Jinyan to live in Luo's Hixian's mansion. Lu's Hixian's mansion looked a little desolate and deserted, not like what a magistrate should have. It is said that Magistrate Luo is incorruptible, which makes people believe it. Xiao Jinyan said, "Zhixian Luo, take me to see the body of Wei Shulai." Zhixian Luo made an invitation gesture, "Please follow me, Governor." Xiao Jinyan stood up and followed Magistrate Luo. Wei Shulai is old and in poor health, but I didn't expect him to suddenly fall ill. Magistrate Luo shook his head helplessly. The body of Wei Shulai was placed in the charity cemetery. Because the weather was not hot, the body did not stink. Xiao Jinyan ordered, "Wei Qi, re-examine the body." "I obey your order." Wei Qi took the order, lifted the white cloth, and re-examined the body. Magistrate Luo stood aside and watched, saying from time to time, "Wei Shulai is in poor health and has been taking medicine all year round." After saying that, he sighed. After Wei Qi finished the inspection, he reported, "Master, no problems were found." Xiao Jinyan pondered for a moment, "Go back." Back at the magistrate's residence, Magistrate Luo greeted him warmly, "Governor, I have asked someone to prepare food and wine on time to welcome you." Xiao Jinyan, "Well, send the account books to me." Not long after Magistrate Luo left, he brought a stack of account books. Xiao Jinyan sat down at the table and picked up the account books to look through them. Shen Chuwei picked up the teapot and poured him a cup of tea. Xiao Jinyan couldn't help asking, "Brother, could Wei Shulai really have just died of illness?" Xiao Jinyan took a sip of tea and said, "Father just sent me to check the account book, and he died. It's too strange." Xiao Jinyan said in a puzzled tone, "Wei Qi didn't find any problems when he checked the body just now. If someone killed him, there would definitely be loopholes." Shen Chuwei listened to the two people chatting. Maybe because she had been a forensic doctor for a while, she asked curiously, "How did he die?" Xiao Jinyu said, "He died of illness. He was taking medicine before he died, but he died." Shen Chuwei asked again, "What disease did he have?" Xiao Jinyan said, "Tuberculosis." Seeing Shen Chuwei asking all the time, Xiao Jinyu joked, "Sister-in-law, you are so interested, you don't know too, right?" Xiao Jinyan paused when looking at the account book, turned his head and looked at Shen Chuwei, and suddenly remembered that when Chun Tao died, Shen Chuwei also looked at the body and concluded that Chun Tao had been abused and died strangely. "Can you do an autopsy?" Today's 10,000 words will be updated gradually. Seeing the comments of the darlings. Some darlings want to see the heroine sleep with the hero right away. Some darlings want the heroine to know that it is also the hero's first time before sleeping with him. Some darlings want the heroine to realize that she also likes the hero before sleeping with him. Dear darlings, please leave a message to see which idea you support. By the way, please give me monthly votes and recommendation votes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 203. Shen Chuwei looked at the two people in front of her, and then looked at Xiao Jinyan, and found that he was looking at her expectantly. She was about to say no, but nodded. "I know a little bit." Xiao Jinyu was just asking casually, but she was shocked by the answer. Sister-in-law, you really know how to do it, so amazing. Xiao Jinyan decided to let Shen Shuwei try it and see if she could find any clues. He closed the account book, then go check it again. Shen Shuwei naturally couldn't refuse the prince's words. Before leaving, Shen Shuwei prepared a lot, and masks and gloves were also necessary. She also brought a coat. After all, it was a corpse, so she had to be careful. She put all the tools for the autopsy in a bag, so that she could take them out when the time came. If she suddenly took them out from the space, it would be like a magic trick, which would definitely make people suspicious. After everything was ready, Shen Shuwei carried the tool bag and followed Xiao Jinyan to the charity cemetery. On the way, Shen Shuwei asked a question: if Wei Shulai had tuberculosis, people who came into contact with him could easily be infected. Has anyone been infected with tuberculosis? I haven't heard of anyone having tuberculosis. It may be that Wei Shulai was in charge of the account book and worked independently without contacting others. Shen Shuwei nodded thoughtfully. The body of Wei Shulai was still in the original place. Shen Shuwei put down the eco-friendly bag, took out the coat from it and put it on, then put on the mask, and then disposable gloves. Then put the tools on. Xiao Jinyan looked at Shen Shuwei's movements and was very skilled. He couldn't help but wonder if she had worked as a coroner before. Xiao Jinyu was stunned. He leaned close to the prince's ear and said in surprise, "Brother, sister-in-law doesn't look like a lady raised in the boudoir." Although Xiao Jinyu was a lazy and salted fish prince, he also saw something unusual. Xiao Jinyan glanced at Xiao Jinyu. "Do you think I'm blind?" Xiao Jinyu suddenly realized that he said that the prince brother was so smart, how could he not see it? That's strange. Shen Shuwei lifted the white cloth and glanced at the dead man. He was about 50 years old and had been dead for 2 days. The body had already hardened. First check whether there was any external injury to leave evidence. Shen Shuwei took out the silver needle, came to the neck of the dead man, slowly inserted the silver needle into the esophagus, and then slowly pulled it out. The silver needle was stained with some unknown color. She smelled it closely and it smelled the medicine. Then, she unbuttoned the dead man's shirt to expose the stomach, took out the silver needle again and inserted it into the stomach, stayed for a few seconds and then pulled it out. There was no smell of medicine on the silver needle. Pulmonary tuberculosis is tuberculosis, a contagious disease that is transmitted by breathing and saliva. It is not contagious after death. Xiao Jinyan looked at it for a long time and asked, "How is it?" Shen Shuwei said slowly, "Master, there is medicine in the esophagus of the deceased, which is used to treat tuberculosis, but there is no medicine for tuberculosis in the stomach, which means that the medicine was poured in after death. So the deceased did not have tuberculosis before his death, nor did he die of tuberculosis." Xiao Jinyu said in surprise, "Then County Magistrate Lugo is lying." Xiao Jinyan's eyes were calm. There is something wrong with County Magistrate Lugo. He then asked, "What is the cause of death?" "There are no external injuries on Wei Shulai, it should be." Shen Shuwei came to the head, pulled apart his hair bit by bit, and groped all the way. Finally, he found a silver needle in Feng Chiake ointment. The silver needle was almost completely immersed, which could kill people instantly. "Master, Wei Shulai died of assassination. The silver needle entered Feng Chiake ointment, and killed him in one blow." Xiao Jinyan took a few steps forward, looked in the direction Shen Shuwei pointed, and saw the silver needle. She said, "Killing Wei Shulai in such a vicious way, you know that this matter is of great relevance." At this time, several black-clad men holding swords and knives suddenly rushed into the charity cemetery and swarmed towards Xiao Jinyan. Their purpose was clear: they wanted to kill Xiao Jinyan. Wei Qi and Qin Xiao drew their long swords to block the people rushing over. For a moment, the scene was full of swords and sabers, which made people tremble with fear. There were so many black-clad men that Wei Qi and Qin Xiao alone could not resist them. The four black-clad men clenched their knives and rushed towards Xiao Jinyan quickly, pointing directly at the vital points. Xiao Jinyu was so scared that his face turned pale. "Brother, be careful." Xiao Jinyan drew a soft sword from his waist and blocked it clearly. Xiao Jinyan ordered without turning his head, "Stay back." Xiao Jinyu found that there were too many assassins and it was too dangerous. He grabbed Shen Shuwei's hand and pulled it behind him. "Sister-in-law, you stay behind me." Shen Shuwei looked at Xiao Jinyu holding her gloved hand, looked up at him, and kindly reminded, "I just touched a dead person." Ah, Xiao Jinyu seemed to be electrocuted, and immediately jumped away, vomiting a few times in disgust. "I'm going to die." Shen Shuwei comforted, "I'm not going to die, it's just that I feel a little disgusted when I think about it when I eat." Xiao Jinyu raised his hand, disgusted and disgusted, "Can I still have my hand?" Shen Shuwei continued to comfort, "You can have it." After that, he smiled and said, "You don't have to." Xiao Jinyu hurriedly took back his hand, "I'd better keep it, I need it for eating." Shen Shuwei chuckled twice, "If you had said it earlier, I almost took out the knife." Xiao Jinyu shrank his neck in fear. "Quick, someone grab the body." Xiao Jinyu pointed at the man in black with his hand that was indirectly in contact with the body and shouted. While shouting, Xiao Jinyu had already rushed towards the man in black. The man in black took a knife and chopped Xiao Jinyu's arm. Seeing this, Shen Shuwei took out a slingshot from the space, took out a glass bead, aimed the bow at the eyes of the man in black, and let go. The whole set of actions was done in one go. The slingshot was her childhood toy, and it had been kept in the space. There were at least thousands of glass beads, all of which she won when she was playing. Ah! A scream resounded throughout the charity cemetery. The knife in the black-clothed man's hand fell to the ground, and he covered his eyes with both hands, in agony. Shen Shuwei fired 6 glass beads in a row, hitting the black-clothed man's eyes every time. Xiao Jinyan looked back and saw Shen Shuwei holding a slingshot, pulling the bow and letting go, with a skilled look. While secretly relieved, he found that Shen Shuwei was really smart and knew a lot. Xiao Jinyu saw the knife coming towards him, and his soul was scared to death. He didn't react until the black-clothed man fell to the ground. "Sister-in-law, you are so powerful." The two protected the body to prevent it from being snatched away. The black-clothed man had 2 goals, one was to snatch the body, and the other was to kill Xiao Jinyan. No matter how good Xiao Jinyan's kung fu is, he can't stand the siege of so many people and is attacked from both sides. Xiao Jinyu saw someone attacking from behind, and he hurriedly shouted, "Brother, be careful behind." Xiao Jinyan turned around and saw the knife coming straight at him. It was too late to avoid it. Seeing this, Shen Shuwei took out a few glass beads, pulled the bow, and aimed at the back of the black-clothed man's head. After letting go, the glass beads flew to the back of the black-clothed man's head. Before he could react, his eyes rolled and he fell straight down. "Good afternoon, my dears. Acting cute and asking for monthly tickets and recommendation tickets." Gongzi Yunsi, after reading the comments of the treasures, they all said they were not greedy, but they actually wanted it. Referring to the treasures of the first station. Gongzi compromised, and the heroine knew that the hero had not asked any woman to sleep with him before going to bed. What do you think, my dears? But in this way, the heroine's bedtime will be postponed. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yunsi. Chapter 204. Xiao Jinyan looked back at Shen Shuwei, and Shen Shuwei raised her eyebrows at him and raised the slingshot in her hand. Every time a man in black wanted to plot against Xiao Jinyan or bully a young man, Shen Shuwei would hit him with glass beads. One shot is accurate. Xiao Jinyu stared at the slingshot in Shen Shuwei's hand, wanting it very much. He asked expectantly, "Sister-in-law, Do you still have a slingshot? Give me one. It's gone. Shen Shuwei clenched the slingshot in his hand and felt relieved after seeing that the black clothes were almost cleaned up. Xiao Jinyu found that it was not bad to have a slingshot, which could attack enemies from a distance. When I get back, I'll make one myself. After dealing with the man in black, Xiao Jinyan ordered, take the body back. I obey my orders. Qin Xiao took the body back to the magistrate's mansion. Shen Shuwei had already taken off his coat and disposed of his mask and disposable gloves. Xiao Jinyan looked at her neat movements and asked, have you ever done adultery before? Shen Chu nodded slightly. I helped a friend for a while, but then I stopped doing it. She was tricked into practicing forensic medicine by a friend. She worked as a forensic doctor for 1 year. After her friend came back, she quit. The professions of forensic medicine and forensic medicine are similar. Xiao Jinyan nodded. I didn't realize that you know a lot. Shen Chu smiled guiltily. I know a little bit. Xiao Jinyan, too humble. Shen Chu smiled but said nothing. Back at the magistrate's residence, Xiao Jinyan asked someone to call Magistrate Luo over. Luo's Hixian came over with a flattering smile on his face. Sir Governor, what are your instructions for calling the officials over? Xiao Jinyan said coldly, you said that Secretary Wei died of tuberculosis? I just asked someone to re-examine the autopsy. It turns out that Secretary Wei did not die of tuberculosis, but was deliberately killed. What's your explanation? The county magistrate of Luo said with a guilty conscience, my lord, I don't know about my humble position. These are the things I told my subordinates. Xiao Jinyan asked coldly, where is Guzo? Luo's Hixian said, I had something to do yesterday and I asked for leave to go home. Xiao Jinyan sneered, this is really a coincidence. Luo's Hixian smiled and said, who says it's not the case? The official also said that he would be delayed for 2 days, but he was in a hurry to go back and said that his mother was seriously ill at home and needed someone to take care of him. Xiao Jinyan ordered in a cold voice, someone, bring Wu Zhou up. Wei Qi walked in carrying a thin man. The younger one is from Yongqian City. His name is Zhou Xiaoliu. See the governor. Zhou Xiaoliu kowtowed. When Luo's Hixian saw Zhou Xiaoliu, his face turned pale with fright. He had obviously left, so why did he come back? Xiao Jinyan's eyes were sharp. Did you, Secretary Wei, do the autopsy? Zhou Xiaoliu said tremblingly, it's the little one who did the autopsy. Xiao Jinyan asked again, what are the results of the autopsy? The autopsy results. Zhou Xiaoliu glanced at Luo's Hixian and said cautiously, during the autopsy, Wei Shulai did not die of tuberculosis. The cause of death is not known to Xiaoliu. Luo's Hixian asked Xiaoliu to say that he died of tuberculosis. In tuberculosis. After Zhou Xiaoliu finished speaking, he kowtowed desperately, please forgive me, sir. Luo's Hixian was angry and scared, you are talking nonsense. When did I teach you this? Xiao Jinyan shouted angrily, Luo Chang, the magistrate of Luo County, what crime do you deserve? Luo's Hixian kowtowed desperately, Sir Governor, I am unjustly accused. Xiao Jinyan's voice was cold, unjustly accused. You killed Secretary Wei, made false accounts, and misappropriated public funds. You should be punished for your crimes. Luo's Hixian was so frightened that he was speechless for a long time. Xiao Jinyan ordered, come here, imprison the magistrate of Luo County and take him back to Kyoto to await the emperor's death. I obey my orders. Wei Qi dragged Magistrate Luo down. Xiao Jinyan checked all the account books overnight, and even took Xiao Jinyu to read them together. While Shen Shuwei was eating pastry, she saw Xiao Jinyu sighing, brother, the account book is so difficult. I can't understand it, can I not read it? In exchange, Xiao Jinyan was furious, if you don't understand, show me. Xiao Jinyu touched his forehead aggrievedly and continued to read obediently. Shen Shuwei poured a cup of hot tea and placed it on Xiao Jinyan's right hand. Your Highness, drink tea. Yes, Xiao Jinyan continued to look at the account books. After watching for a while, Xiao Jinyan raised his head and said, "It's very late, you go and rest first." Shen Shuwei was indeed sleepy now. She yawned and asked, "When will your Highness rest?" "Xiao Jinyan, I have to wait." "Then I'll go to bed first." Shen Shuwei stood up and walked into the back room. When Xiao Jinyu saw that Shen Shuwei had gone to bed, he looked at Xiao Jinyan expectantly. "Brother, I'm sleepy too, can I go to bed too?" Xiao Jinyan looked at him coldly. "What do you think?" Xiao Jinyu pinched his thigh hard and endured the pain. "I'm not very sleepy yet, so I can continue watching." Xiao Jinyan then retracted his gaze and continued to look at the account books. By the time Xiao Jinyan finished his work, it was already midnight. Xiao Jinyu yawned and returned to his room. Xiao Jinyan walked into the back room after taking a shower. The person on the bed was sleeping soundly. He lifted the quilt and lay down. He stretched out his hand to pull the person into his arms. He couldn't resist the sleepiness and fell asleep. Asterisk. The next day, the sun was shining brightly, which was a good day for getting married. Shen Shuwei held the snowball in his arms and fed it ham sausage. He looked at the tree branch that Xiao Jinyu got from somewhere and was cutting it bit by bit with a knife, trying to make it into a slingshot. Miss Han held the teacup and drank slowly, as if she was watching Xiao Jinyu's handiwork. She actually found a little sweetness in it. At this time, the sound of firecrackers came from the side door, and the children cheered and shouted, "We want wedding candy, we want wedding candy. The bride is so beautiful." Chengzi came trotting over. "My lady, it's a wealthy family getting married, and they are marrying two sisters at the same time. Do you want to watch the fun?" Shen Shuwei was interested. "Go and take a look, see if you can grab some wedding candy." Because weddings in her place would scatter wedding candy for people to grab, and later they were given directly, so there was no fun in grabbing wedding candy. Shen Shuwei came to the side door with Suichuan and Chengzi, and saw people watching the fun on both sides of the street. Gongs and drums were loud, firecrackers were blasting, it was so lively. The children ran and shouted, grabbing wedding candy, and laughing happily. Chengzi glanced at her and said, "My lady, this wealthy family's wedding is different, with a big show. I heard that this wealthy family is a famous local businessman, and they have several concubines and maids at home. Fortunately, this pair of sisters can take care of each other and have no worries about food and clothing." Shen Shuwei listened. According to modern times, it would be a big deal. It's okay to have concubines and maids at home, but they also married two sisters into the family. But it was normal in ancient times. Just like Xiao Jinyan, didn't he also have many wives and concubines? It's more important for a woman to marry a good family than anything else, but my lady is the concubine of His Highness, so she is also a good marriage, Chengzi said happily. Shen Shuwei didn't respond because Chengzi was an ancient person. She sighed secretly. Is it good to share a husband with a bunch of women? Xiao Jinyan just came over and heard Shen Shuwei's inner thoughts. There are still 4,000 words and 2 chapters. I don't know if I can write it before 12 o'clock. Begging for monthly tickets and recommendation tickets by acting cute. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 205. After Xiao Jinyan finished dealing with the account book, he came out to find Shen Shuwei and saw her standing there watching others pick up the bride. Outside, gongs and drums were loud and firecrackers were blasting. He still heard what Shen Shuwei was thinking. Chengzi looked at her master happily and found that she had been staring at the wedding procession. She took her arm and said, "My lady, do you also want to ride in a sedan chair?" Shen Shuwei turned her head to look at Chengzi and said lightly, "What do you think?" "I think my lady definitely wants to." Girls will want to ride in a sedan chair on the day of their wedding, but my lady is His Highness's person, and it is also what many women dream of, so we don't need to envy them. Chengzi smiled again as she spoke. Shen Shuwei looked at the smile on Chengzi's face and didn't think there was anything wrong. This is the difference between ancient and modern times. She looked at a group of children grabbing wedding candies, and she might as well envy being able to be like them and grab wedding candies openly. Xiao Jinyan looked at the group of children, each holding a few wedding candies in their hands, with innocent and joyful smiles on their faces. My lady, your highness loves you, and I am also blessed with it. Otherwise, I may not be able to leave the palace in my life. Chengzi couldn't help but sigh again, and then she saw Xiao Jinyan behind her, and she was frightened and saluted quickly, Your Highness. She couldn't help but wail in her heart, Your Highness shouldn't have heard what she said. Shen Shuwei turned around and saw Xiao Jinyan standing less than 2 meters away from her. She stepped forward and bowed, Your Highness. Xiao Jinyan took a few steps forward and stood beside Shen Shuwei, looking at the wedding procession, and could only see the shadow at this time. It is indeed lively to get married in the folk. Shen Chu smiled and said, You can scatter wedding candies. Xiao Jinyan nodded, Yes. After dealing with things here, you can go back to the palace. Before Xiao Jinyan came, he thought this matter would be very difficult, but it was resolved so quickly, which was a bit beyond his expectations. Shen Shuwei was a little disappointed when she heard that she could return to the palace immediately. She hadn't been to the snack street yet. County Magistrate Luo was just one of them. There were several officials implicated. I'm afraid Kyoto was also related. This time, Xiao Jinyan only dealt with several officials in Yangqian City and transferred them from above. As for whether the court was related, we have to go back and investigate to find out. Xiao Jinyan went out and didn't come back until dinner time. He just looked a little unhappy. It was probably that he was very angry with those officials. Chengzi had already placed the food on the table one by one. After setting up the bowls and chopsticks, he stepped aside. Shen Shuwei picked up a few dishes that Xiao Jinyan liked and put them in the bowl in front of him, and reminded him, Your Highness, Chengzi made all the food tonight. Eat more. Yes, Xiao Jinyan smelled the fragrance of the food and knew that it was not the skill of the chef in the mansion. He picked up the chopsticks and picked up the food in the bowl before putting it into his mouth to chew slowly. Shen Shuwei picked up the chopsticks and started eating. Xiao Jinyan raised his head and looked at Shen Shuwei, thought for a moment, and then lowered his head to continue eating. When it was time to sleep, Shen Shuwei went to bed first, and then saw Xiao Jinyan walk to the chair after taking a bath, bend down and hold Swichuan in his arms. Shen Shuwei watched him hold the cat to bed, his eyes full of doubts, Your Highness, didn't you say not to hold the cat when sleeping? Swichuan also looked at Xiao Jinyan with a puzzled look. Swichuan has been very good recently, you can stay in bed for a while. Xiao Jinyan calmly put Swichuan in her arms, hold for a while. Shen Shuwei looked down at Swichuan in her arms, a little confused. Xiao Jinyan also has a time when he doesn't make sense. Swichuan was even more confused, he didn't see you so generous when he performed well before. Xiao Jinyan lifted the quilt and sat in. Shen Shuwei looked at him, is Xiao Jinyan not going to sleep? After Xiao Jinyan sat down, he turned his head to look at the man and the cat who were still confused. He coughed lightly, it's too early to go to bed tonight, why don't you chat? Shen Shuwei smiled apologetically, dare I say no? If you don't sleep, I dare not sleep either. Xiao Jinyan, so you have to cooperate with me to chat. Shen Shuwei asked quickly, Your Highness, how much do you want to talk about? Xiao Jinyan, what? Shen Shuwei found that she had talked about modernization, and hurriedly changed her words, what does Your Highness want to talk about? I will cooperate with you throughout the whole process. Xiao Jinyan thought about it and decided to ask the big one first, what kind of life do you like? Of course, I don't have to worry about food and clothing, I don't have to worry about every day. I grow vegetables, raise chickens and ducks, and make a small fish pond. It would be even better to have a pig pen. Shen Shuwei did not forget to hint to Xiao Jinyan that it would be even better to buy a piglet for me. Xiao Jinyan, raising chickens and ducks is fine, but you actually want to raise pigs. Are you trying to turn the East Palace into a breeding farm? He tried to calm his excitement. Don't worry, I won't give you piglets. You are a concubine now, you can't just think about these things. You should think about it higher. Xiao Jinyan tried to hint. Shen Shuwei suddenly realized, I understand, I am short-sighted. Xiao Jinyan secretly breathed a sigh of relief, that's right. After Xiao Jinyan's reminder, Shen Shuwei said, Your Highness, it's best to raise 2 pigs. 1 male and 1 female, you can breed, otherwise you can't get piglets. Xiao Jinyan. Still thinking about breeding? How can you be so bold as a girl? Xiao Jinyan regretted talking to Shen Shuwei about this topic. He thought about it and asked again, I see that you know a lot. Where do you people get married? Do you need to ride a sedan chair when you get married? Of course, what else do girls ride when they get married if not a sedan chair? Shen Shuwei must have said this on the surface, otherwise she would be suspected. We all have sedans, the more luxurious it is, the richer the man is. Sedan. Xiao Jinyan heard it for the first time, and he didn't know what it was, so he didn't ask directly. Really? I thought that the customs in each place were different, and the wedding would be different. Shen Shuwei asked casually, when did your highness become interested in these? Xiao Jinyan replied calmly, isn't this palace chatting with you? Just asking casually. Your highness is so elegant, staying up late at night and chatting is not in line with your personality at all. Xiao Jinyan explained, you are my concubine, so I naturally have to know something. Shen Shuwei, I understand. I am not from here, what is there to know? Prince, you are so thoughtful. Sichuan was looking at Xiao Jinyan with a dull face, as if he also felt that Xiao Jinyan was very abnormal tonight. Xiao Jinyan ignored Sichuan's dull eyes and continued to ask, what do you think about a man having 3 wives and 4 concubines? Why did your highness ask me this question? Xiao Jinyan coughed lightly, I just asked casually. Shen Shuwei seemed to have thought of something, does your highness want to take a concubine again? Good night, my dears. There is one more chapter, which will be made up tomorrow. The emperor will sleep with me tomorrow, and it will not be postponed. Begging for monthly tickets and recommendation tickets by acting cute. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 206. Xiao Jinyan, why do you ask that? Shen Shuwei blinked her beautiful eyes and said innocently, didn't his highness ask? Xiao Jinyan, I didn't mention taking a concubine. Shen Shuwei, oh, I misheard. If you don't want to take a concubine, why do you want to mention 3 wives and 4 concubines? Even if you want to take a concubine, no one will stop you. No one dared to stop you. Xiao Jinyan couldn't help but raise his hand and knocked on her full forehead, I don't want to take a concubine. Shen Shuwei touched her forehead and looked at Xiao Jinyan with a puzzled look, I didn't say you wanted to take a concubine. I just thought about it, but the prince saw it. Isn't this too poisonous? Xiao Jinyan pinched her eyebrows. She was a little out of control just now. Why did she say it directly? Seeing Xiao Jinyan's headache, Shen Shuwei advised, Your Highness, do you have a headache? It must be caused by staying up late these days. You should go to bed early. Staying up late is the most harmful to your health. Xiao Jinyan turned her head to look at Shen Shuwei, and her pretty face was looking at her without blinking. Do you know what I am thinking now? Shen Shuwei resisted the urge to yawn and shook her head. I don't know. Xiao Jinyan reached out and picked up the snowball and threw it to the ground. The snowball, who was still confused, suddenly flew into the air, startled, and then turned over and landed steadily on the ground. This time he was not confused, but glared at Xiao Jinyan, and his eyes seemed to be accusing him, throwing it away after using it. Xiao Jinyan's sudden move also startled Shen Shuwei, and watched the snowball being thrown out. The prince is so rude. I am rude. Xiao Jinyan hooked her finger at her. Come here. Shen Shuwei, who had suffered a loss once, still did not make much progress, and came over obediently. What does your highness want to say? Xiao Jinyan leaned close to her ear and whispered. The voice was too soft, Shen Shuwei did not hear it clearly. She tilted her head to ask, Your highness, please say it again. The concubine did not hear it clearly. The rest of the words were blocked in her mouth, and there was no chance to say it. Different from the previous kisses, this kiss was obviously a bit eager, and with a bit of domineering forbearance. After it was over, Shen Shuwei felt a little pain in addition to difficulty breathing. She reached out and touched it, and it was still a little painful. Your highness, are you not full? Xiao Jinyan, he has never eaten once, how can he be full? The next day, Shen Shuwei woke up and looked in the mirror and found that it was swollen. When did Xiao Jinyan become so rude? Chengzi had already figured out Shen Shuwei's work and rest habits, guessed that she was awake at this time, and pushed the door open and walked in. Seeing Shen Shuwei in front of the dressing table, she came over with a smile. My lady, His Highness went out today and said he would be back very late, so you don't have to wait for him. By the way, I also told you not to run around and stay at home obediently. Who is waiting for him? Shen Shuwei was depressed, and she was even more depressed when she saw the evidence left by Xiao Jinyan. Shen Shuwei turned her head to look at Chengzi, grabbed her hand and said, Chengzi, let's run away. Chengzi asked in confusion, My lady, why should we run away? Chengzi seemed to think of something, covering her mouth with a look of shock. My lady, did you do something bad? Do you want to escape for fear of crime? Shen Shuwei. This child has a rich imagination. My lady, if you do something wrong, you will take the initiative to admit your mistakes to His Highness. The whole world is the Xiao family. We have nowhere to run, and we will become wanted criminals. Shen Shuwei patted Chengzi's hand as if to comfort her and said, I'm kidding. Chengzi patted her chest, You scared me to death. When it was getting dark, Shen Shuwei took advantage of Xiao Jinyan's absence and pulled Chengzi out. My lady, where are we going? Let's go to the snack street. When Chengzi heard about going to the snack street, she thought of the last time she was almost sold. She hurriedly grabbed Shen Shuwei's hand. My lady, there are many bad guys outside. Let's wait for His Highness to come back before going. If His Highness comes back and finds out that we went out, he will definitely be angry. Shen Shuwei was forced to stop and looked back to see Chengzi's frightened face. She said, He has been busy these days and has no time to go out. We will go secretly and will not be discovered. But Chengzi was still hesitating. Don't say but. When you see the delicious food, you will feel that it is all worth it. Shen Shuwei took Chengzi out the back door. They went to the busy street market through the back door. After asking a few people on the way, they soon found the snack street, where the lights were bright and the aroma of delicious food was everywhere. The snack street in Yongqian City is much larger than the last snack street. On the way here, Chengzi was still afraid that Xiao Jinyan would come back and blame them. Now that she came to the snack street, she was quickly attracted by the food. Although Chengzi was not as greedy as Shen Shuwei, she also liked to eat. Shen Shuwei came to a pancake stall. She pointed to the freshly baked pancakes and said, Boss, give me 2 pancakes, just out of the pan. Okay, the boss neatly put 2 pancakes in an oil paper bag and handed them to Shen Shuwei. Chengzi took out her purse and asked the price before paying. Shen Shuwei waited for Chengzi to pay and stuffed another one into her hand. This pancake tastes better when it's hot. Chengzi took the cake and felt it was still warm. She had lived in the palace since she was a child. How could she have eaten cakes from outside? She was curious and a little greedy. She couldn't wait to taste it and found it was really delicious. No wonder Shen Shuwei liked it. Shen Shuwei ate the cake and walked around in front of the stalls. When he saw the delicious food, he couldn't help but stop, look at it more, and buy whatever he wanted. Shopping along the way, I bought a lot of delicious food. Chengzi still hadn't forgotten that they ran out secretly. She tugged on Shen Shuwei's sleeves and reminded, "My lord, we should go back. If His Highness comes back and finds that we are not here, it will be over." Shen Shuwei looked at the stall selling spicy soup. Looking at the spicy soup, she couldn't sell it. Have another bowl of spicy soup and go back. But Chengzi watched Shen Shuwei go straight to the spicy soup stall, and sighed helplessly and followed. "Boss, 2 bowls of spicy soup," Shen Shuwei shouted loudly, fearing that the wife of the boss wouldn't be able to hear her due to the crowds and noise. The landlady's business is going well, with a happy smile on her face full of traces of time. "Sir, you'll be here soon." After a while, 2 bowls of spicy soup were served on the table, steaming from the mouth of the bowl. Shen Shuwei took a spoon and scooped up the spicy soup, put it to his lips, blew on it, and then eagerly ate it into his mouth. Chengzi was a little greedy when she saw it. She had never eaten spicy soup before, and it smelled even better. At this time, the magistrate's residence. When Xiao Jinyan came back from outside, he immediately went back to the house. When he found it was dark inside, he frowned. "Xiaoju." After searching around the room, he couldn't find Shen Shuwei. He strode out and asked the servants in the house, only to find out that they had gone out. Xiao Jinyan thought that Shen Shuwei wanted to go to the snack street the day before yesterday, but he was busy for a few days and didn't take her there. "Babies. Good afternoon. I'm in a bad mood today. I just finished coding a chapter and sent it out. By the way, please ask for monthly tickets and recommendation votes. There will be updates coming out one after another. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading." Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 207. Thinking that she might go to the snack street, his voice seemed helpless. "Can't you wait even a day?" Xiao Jinyan led people straight to the snack street. "It's only a cup of tea's journey away." At the entrance of the snack street, Xiao Jinyan looked at the bustling snack street and ordered, "She likes to eat delicious food and will not miss any food stall." "I obey my orders." Wei Qi and Qin Xiao said in unison, then separated to look for someone. Xiao Jinyan has been with Shen Shuwei for such a long time, and he still knows her preferences. Looking at the stalls on both sides, there are many delicious foods, but it does not mean that she likes them all. He walked all the way inside. The more people there were in the stall, the greater the chance of her appearing. At this time, Shen Shuwei didn't know that Xiao Jinyan had already found it. After finishing the spicy soup, she saw the candied horse seller again. She went up and picked 2 bunches, then thought about it and took another bunch. Chengzi shook her head helplessly, took out her money bag, took out 10 copper coins and handed them to the boss. Shen Shuwei handed a bunch of candied horse to Chengzi. "This is sour and sweet, especially delicious." Chengzi was in the palace and saw the candied horse for the first time. It was red and round and felt very strange. Chengzi took the candied horse on a stick and looked at it carefully. "This is my first time seeing the candied horse on a stick. It looks delicious." Of course Shen Shuwei couldn't wait to take a bite, which was sour and sweet. "Master, what are you looking at?" Chu Zhao looked at his master curiously. Jun Wuxian stared at the young man eating candied haws, I see that that man looks a bit like Xiaoju. Really? Chu Zhao followed his master's line of sight and saw a young man wearing moon-white clothes. The young man had a palm-sized face and was as delicate as a pink and jade doll. He was eating candied haws in his hand. Very happy. Regardless of gender, her facial features are indeed somewhat similar to Xiaoju's. When Chu Zhao looked back at his master, he saw that his master was striding away. He quickly chased after him. "Master, where are you going?" Shen Shuwei was eating candied haws, and after walking a few steps, she found someone blocking her way. She raised her head and looked at the person blocking her. The man was a man, with arrogant features and a bit of rebelliousness. He was about the same height as Xiao Jinyan. Not much. And those beautiful eyes were looking at him with unbridled eyes. She kindly reminded, "Sir, you are blocking my way." When Chengzi saw someone having evil intentions towards her master, she took a few steps forward, opened her arms to stop him, raised her chin and looked at the man. "Sir, you are so rude, how can you stare at my master like this?" Jun Wuxian glanced at Chun 11, then looked at Shen Shuwei, who was stuffing candied haws of sugar in her mouth. "I just want to remind this young master that eating too much sugar will cause toothache." Shen Chu puffed out his cheeks slightly and said vaguely, "Thank you for your kindness, can you please let me go?" Jun Wuxian stood still, looking at his little mouth without stopping for a moment. He looked very much like Xiaoju, who loved to eat and was greedy. "Can I ask the young master a question?" Shen Shuwei asked, "Do we know each other?" Jun Wuxian shook his head, "It's our first time meeting." Shen Shuwei said again, "Then why should I answer your question?" Jun Wuxian couldn't help laughing when he heard this. "That makes sense." Shen Shuwei couldn't help but roll his eyes. "What's so funny?" "Then can you get out of the way?" Jun Wuxian looked at the unopened candied haws in Shen Shuwei's hand, and suddenly became interested. "I haven't eaten what you have, can you give me a taste?" Shen Shuwei clenched the candied haws in his hand and refused simply, "No." Chengzi was immediately furious when she heard Jun Wuxian confidently asking for candied haws on a stick. She raised her chin and shouted back, "How come you, a grown man, have the nerve to ask my master for candied haws on a stick? Can't you buy it yourself?" Jun Wuxian spread his hands. "I met a robber when I went out, and all my money was stolen." Chu Zhao raised his head and looked at his master, his eyes full of doubts. He obviously didn't meet the robber. Chengzi looked Jun Wuxian up and down, and swallowed back her words when she was about to retaliate. It was a difficult time for everyone. Chengzi couldn't make up her mind, so she turned back to look at Shen Shuwei and asked in a low voice, "My dear master, how about giving him 2 taels of silver?" Shen Shuwei ate candied haws, "You can figure it out yourself." Oh, Chengzi looked away and touched the money bag, took out 2 taels of silver and handed it to Jun Wuxian. "Hey." Jun Wuxian lowered his head and looked at the 2 taels of silver in Chun 11's hand. After thinking about it, he took it generously and said with a smile, "I borrowed it from you, and I will pay it back tenfold in the future." But Chengzi shook her head, "I gave it to you and didn't want you to return it. It's a time when everyone is in trouble." Jun Wuxian said, "How can that be done? I'm not the kind of person who doesn't repay kindness in return. Leave a name or address, and when I have money, I'll come to thank you in person." Seeing how persistent he was, Shen Shuwei randomly picked up a name. "My name is Bai Xiaofei. If you ask around, you will know my name. I am very famous." When Chengzi heard this, she knew that Shen Shuwei was fooling around. She tugged on Shen Shuwei's sleeves and whispered, "Little master, we really should go back this time. If the master finds out, we will all have to finish the game. Remember, my name is Bai Xiaofei." Before leaving, Shen Shuwei reminded Jun Wuxian before leaving with Chengzi. Chu Zhao asked doubtfully, "Bai Xiaofei? Is this person famous?" Jun Wuxian looked at Shen Shuwei's leaving figure and smiled, By Sci-fi, you can tell it's a fake name as soon as you hear it. Chu Zhao suddenly realized, it turns out to be a fake name. No wonder I haven't heard of Bai Sci-fi for so long. Asterisk. Shen Shuwei hadn't left the snack street yet when she saw Xiao Jinyan walking towards her from a distance. She paused while eating the candied haws. After thinking about it, she was caught stealing again. Chengzi was so frightened that she tugged on Shen Shuwei's sleeve and said, "My lord, look, I was caught by His Highness." Shen Shuwei quickly swallowed the candied haws in his mouth, ran over with the candied haws in his hand, and handed the unopened candied haws to Xiao Jinyan, intending to bribe him. "Master, I bought this specially for you." Xiao Jinyan glanced at the candied haws in front of him and took it directly. "Do you think buying the candied haws for me will offset your running around?" Shen Shuwei immediately admitted his mistake. "Master, I won't dare to do it again." Xiao Jinyan said coldly, "I'll settle the score with you when I get back." Because of Xiao Jinyan's words, Shen Shuwei spent all the way back to the magistrate's mansion, and after taking a bath in uneasiness, Shen Shuwei temporarily forgot about settling accounts until Xiao Jinyan walked out wearing a bath towel after taking a bath. She couldn't help but take a few more glances, because Xiao Jinyan's figure was so good, without a trace of fat, and the texture lines were very perfect. The bath towel was stuck right on the mermaid line. There are updates. Asking for votes. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 208. Sichuan has been sulking because Shen Shuwei left it at home instead of taking it with him when he went out. It raised its eyes and looked over, and shouted with satisfaction, "Meow." This cat meow made Shen Shuwei react. She quickly looked away at the snowball beside her, and saw that it looked extremely aggrieved. That look clearly wanted comfort. "I can't protect myself now, and I really can't comfort you. You'd better stop yelling." Xiao Jinyan is getting more and more angry. "It's me who is unlucky. Snowball, be good." Xuetuan blinked his blue eyes twice, feeling a little confused. When Xiao Jinyan came out, he found that Shen Shuwei had been staring at him. When he was taking a bath just now, he realized that he had forgotten to take his clothes, so he came out wearing a bath towel. He walked over slowly, looked sideways at the snowball, and gave it 2 words, "Get out." Meow. The already aggrieved Xuetuan was even more aggrieved now. Forced by Xiao Jinyan's aura that was too strong, it jumped down from the chair, came to the window, jumped out directly, and its snow-white figure disappeared into the dark night. Shen Shuwei watched Xuetuan leave, and the uneasy feeling in her heart returned. She withdrew her gaze and looked at Xiao Jinyan, who had already walked over. This is a close look, and it's very real. Xiao Jinyan's figure can be said to be perfect, with no fat at all on her waist, all her tendons, not exaggerated, with smooth lines and very good flexibility. When she was learning to draw, she always searched for pictures on the internet. Many of them were too exaggerated, or they were just a waste of time and had no reference. Xiao Jinyan chuckled lightly, "I didn't expect Xiaju to be so interested in me." Shen Shuwei was a little embarrassed. He actually wanted to write and draw with a reference just now. She quickly denied, "No, no, I don't dare." Of course Xiao Jinyan didn't believe it. "Really? I remember that you have a painting that is good." Shen Shuwei felt extremely guilty. It was all about Chen Sesame and rotten millet, but he actually remembered it. "My concubine drew random things, please don't take it seriously, Your Highness." Xiao Jinyan asked again, "Then why did you draw me?" Shen Shuwei pretended to be stupid, "Is there any?" "Your Highness must have remembered it wrong." Shen Shu slightly beat his chest and felt regretful. If she could put it back on, she promised not to draw. Not to mention that just because he saw Xiao Jinyan and found him handsome, he would use him as a model to practice painting, nor would he paint such eye-catching paintings. Xiao Jinyan chuckled, "I still have good eyesight." It is clearly me who is painting. Shen Chu gritted his teeth slightly and simply admitted it. Didn't he just draw it? It's not a crime. But when he spoke, he was too timid. I was so amazed when I saw His Highness's appearance that I drew it. Not forgetting to blow a rainbow fart. Then why are you wearing so little? Shen Chuwei didn't expect Xiao Jinyan to break the casserole and ask, why? Of course I can't say. Because I am stupid and don't know how to draw complicated patterns on clothes. Xiao Jinyan stared at her for a long time. When he saw the painting for the first time, he was really shocked. Not only because her paintings are very detailed, you can even see the strands of hair, and the texture lines are very three-dimensional. And the protagonist of that painting is himself, or himself smiling. Your Highness, I will bring you some clothes. Shen Chuwei didn't want to continue the topic. She got off the bed neatly, put on her shoes, and picked up the clothes on the bed, but Xiao Jinyan grabbed her arm. No. Shen Chu looked Xiao Jinyan up and down and asked doubtfully, then is your Highness going to sleep like this tonight? Xiao Jinyan had a slight smile in his eyes and took 2 steps forward. Shen Chu slightly stepped back subconsciously, and her calves hit the bed, causing her to fall back. She subconsciously reached out and grabbed Xiao Jinyan's arm. Ah! Xiao Jinyan put his arm around her waist and fell down on the bed together. Fortunately, the bed was very soft and Xiao Jinyan held her in his arms, so she didn't feel any pain from the fall. Shen Chu secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, there was a bed behind her. If it were the ground, it would definitely be very painful. Only when she raised her eyes to look at Xiao Jinyan did she realize how close they were. The palm of my hand feels firm and hot. Xiao Jinyan lowered his eyes and looked at her intently, and called in his slightly deep voice, Xiaju. Shen Chu's pale cheeks felt a little warm. Your Highness, get up first. Xiao Jinyan noticed that her face was a little red, and her slender fingers touched her face, which felt a little hot. Why are you blushing? Shen Chu said softly, Your Majesty, when you get up, I will stop blushing. Xiao Jinyan chuckled, what if I don't get up? Shen Chuwei said seriously and with a I'm doing good for you tone, then we can't sleep in this position. I don't care about it, I'm afraid it will be uncomfortable for your Highness to support him for several hours a night. Xiao Jinyan suppressed a smile and said, Xiaju, why are you so cute? Shen Chuwei noticed that Xiao Jinyan laughed several times tonight and was stunned for a while. Xiao Jinyan could be so aloof and cold as hell. Although I look pretty when I smile, I'm still a little uncomfortable with it. Xiao Jinyan said, I told you not to run around, why did you knowingly violate it? Shen Chuwei rushed to answer, I know I made a mistake, and I promise I will never do it again next time. Xiao Jinyan had never really wanted to settle a score with her, so he admitted his mistake with a good attitude, and he stopped pursuing it. He grabbed the hand on his chest and pushed it back to the bed, lowered his head and kissed her lips. Shen Chuwei blinked her beautiful eyes, and suddenly thought of the scene of Xiao Jinyan biting her last night. It was still a little painful when she ate spicy soup tonight. Just when she was scared, she found that he was really gentle compared to last night. Not only gentle, but also with a bit of restraint and forbearance. Shen Chuwei's body softened immediately. Just like the previous times, she was kissed and felt dizzy. She had never talked about love before, and she didn't understand that a kiss could make people forget the time and where they were. Some people are the dominant ones, as if they were deliberately guiding them. Just when she was about to be out of breath, Xiao Jinyan suddenly let go of her. Seeing him get up and put down the bed curtain, and then get on the bed, the action seemed a little impatient. At this time, she didn't know what Xiao Jinyan wanted to do, she was stupid. This time, it was estimated that he was really going to serve the emperor. This little salted fish of hers was going to be tossed over and over. Xiao Jinyan kissed her again, still gentle and restrained. Your Highness. Xiao Jinyan said hoarsely, Call me Jinyan. Shen Shuwei slowed down, Your Highness, I. She had something to say, and if she didn't say it now, she would have no chance. Unfortunately, Xiao Jinyan didn't give her a chance to speak at all. Xiao Jinyan stared at her closely and repeated again, At this time, you should call me Jinyan, understand? Shen Shuwei was forced to shout, Jinyan. Push the finished article of the young master. After I traveled through the book, I raised the violent regent king as a spoiled child, the wife in Qin Yes arms is a big boss, running wild around the paranoid Fu Xiao, etc. You can click on the author's homepage to go directly. There are also updates. Please vote. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 209. As the saying goes, people have to bow their heads under the eaves. She is, people have to obey under the prince. It was the first time to call her Jinyan, and I was really not used to it. But then again, the name is still very nice. It was also the first time that Xiao Jinyan heard someone call her name. Shen Shuwei's voice was originally soft and sticky, like cotton candy, which was much better than calling her Your Highness. Xiao Jinyan kissed her as if rewarding her, Xiaoju, let's take it slowly. Shen Shuwei wanted to grab Xiao Jinyan's arm, but it was Xiao Jinyan's hand that she grabbed, because her hand was tightly shackled on the bed by him. With a gap, she made a request, I want to move back to Xiun Pavilion. If not now, when? Xiao Jinyan paused, raised his eyes and looked at her, why? I want to move back. Shen Shuwei knew that Xiao Jinyan should be happy at this time, and it should be easy to agree to such a request. Xiao Jinyan held her in his arms and kissed the corner of her mouth, Xiaju, isn't it good to live in Hehuan Palace? Shen Shuwei whispered, Your Highness likes Xiun Pavilion. Xiao Jinyan's eyes paused, and after a while, she uttered a sentence, what if I don't want to? Shen Shuwei was already used to calling him Your Highness, and couldn't change it for a while, so she subconsciously shouted again, Your Highness. Xiao Jinyan used some effort, What do you call me? Shen Shuwei immediately changed her words, Jinyan, why don't you want to? Xiao Jinyan asked back, isn't it good for us to live next door? Shen Shuwei didn't know why Xiao Jinyan insisted on letting her live in Hehuan Palace, but she still wanted to guard her own vegetable garden, chicken coop, and fish pond. But Your Highness still wants to live in Xiun Pavilion. The Emperor is far away, and you don't have to be bound by what you want to do, and you can stay away from some disputes. Isn't it good? Xiao Jinyan frowned and simply blocked her lips to stop her from talking about moving back to Xiun Pavilion. After finally moving out, how could he let her move back? It was much more convenient to meet next door than in Xiun Pavilion. Others wanted to live in Hehuan Palace but couldn't come in, but she was the only one who abandoned it. Shen Shuwei wanted to say something, but Xiao Jinyan didn't give him a chance. She finally got this chance, and if she didn't say it, she would have no chance. Shen Shuwei found the opportunity and asked again, Jinyan, can we discuss it again? This time she learned her lesson and called her by her name directly. In order to avoid him doing something bad in secret if she called her by the wrong name. Xiao Jinyan's forehead was full of sweat, and he was obviously too restrained. He said in a hoarse voice, do you think it's a good time to discuss this matter? I think it's good. Shen Shuwei looked at the man's eyes reddened, dark colors surged in his eyes, and her voice unconsciously weakened. But if she missed this opportunity, it would be gone. Xiao Jinyan answered straightforwardly, I don't think it's good. The tone that could not be refused made Shen Shuwei cowardly again, then let's not discuss it now. Xiao Jinyan used force to lean close to her ear and whispered, why do you still have the heart to think about these? Am I not working hard enough? Shen Shuwei couldn't speak, and could only look at Xiao Jinyan's profile. His profile was really good looking, and it could be said that there was no dead angle in all directions. As Shen Shuwei thought, she, a little salted fish, could not escape being tossed over and over again. The candle light flickered, and the fragrance floated. After a long time, Xiao Jinyan whispered in Shen Shuwei's ear, "Xiaoju, I didn't sleep with them." At this time, Shen Shuwei was already tired and drowsy. She missed a few words when she heard a sentence. The next day, Shen Shuwei was awakened by hunger. When she opened her eyes, it was already noon, and Xiao Jinyan was no longer around her. Why did she fall asleep last night? There are still important things to discuss. She lay on the bed, too tired to move, but she was very hungry and had to replenish her food to restore her strength. Chengzi, as soon as she spoke, her voice was very hoarse. Chengzi had been guarding the door. In the morning, the prince had told her not to go in and disturb Shen Shuwei's rest and to prepare meals in advance. At this time, she heard Shen Shuwei's barely audible cry, and Chengzi still heard it. She pushed the door open and came to the bed with a smile. "My lady, I will help you wash and dress." Shen Shuwei lay still and said weakly, "Wait a little longer to dress, wash and eat first, I'm starving." Chengzi heard it carefully at this time, and couldn't help but worry, "My lady, what's wrong with your voice? Why is it so hoarse?" Shen Shuwei also found that her voice was very hoarse, just like a serious cold. "It's all tears when I talk about it." "Could it be that you caught a cold yesterday?" Chengzi was so scared, "I'd better ask the doctor to come and see the lady." Shen Shuwei saw Chengzi turning around and leaving, and hurriedly called her, "Chengzi, no need, I'm just hungry, I'll be fine after eating." Chengzi still looked at Shen Shuwei with a worried face. "My lady, you don't look hungry." "I'm full, no." "No." Shen Shuwei quickly changed her words, "Chengzi, get the food first, be obedient." "But." "Don't say but. I'll help you wash up now." Chengzi had to bring in the toiletries first, and then ask the doctor later. After washing up, Chengzi brought in the food and placed them on the low table one by one. There was a low table on the bed, which was convenient for eating in bed. Shen Shuwei swallowed her saliva when she saw the delicious food. Chengzi brought a cup of warm water to her. "My lady, drink some water to moisten your throat first." Okay. Shen Shuwei was actually very thirsty. She took the water glass and drank several sips of warm water to moisten her throat. After drinking the water, she couldn't wait to pick up the chopsticks and eat. "In fact, I was hungry last night." She gets hungry easily even when she is not exercising, let alone when she is exercising. It's a pity that Xiao Jinyan is in high spirits and tireless. It was obvious that he was doing all the hard work. In the end, it was myself who got tired. But he was still full of energy and became more and more courageous as he fought. He didn't hear what he said clearly at the end. But now with good food, filling your stomach is the most important thing. Chengzi looked at her little master devouring his food, as if he had been hungry all day and night. He had never seen his little master so hungry before, right? Last night at the snack street, the host had a lot to eat. While Chengzi was confused, she thought that the little master might be infected with the cold. "Little master, I'll go ask the doctor now." After saying that, he turned around and ran away without giving Shen Shuwei a chance to stop him. "I'm not infected with the cold. Please call a doctor." "I'm a doctor myself, but I just overused my voice," Shen Shuwei said, lowering his head and continuing to eat. Filling his stomach is the most important thing in life. Chengzi ran all the way out, and as soon as she reached the door, she met His Highness the Crown Prince, who was coming back from outside. Xiao Jinyan saw Chengzi acting recklessly and asked coldly, "Why are you running?" Chun was so blessed that he said hurriedly, "Your Highness, The young master's voice is hoarse so much that he is probably infected with the cold. I am in a hurry to call a doctor. Good night, babies. The main text can only be written like this, otherwise it will not pass the review. Acting like a coquettish girl, please give me monthly votes and recommendation votes. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 210. Xiao Jinyan knew what was going on as soon as he heard it. He coughed lightly and said, "No need to ask the doctor, I will go over and take a look." Ah, Chengzi looked at Xiao Jinyan in confusion and asked cautiously, "Your Highness, my mistress, she is sick. How can we not call a doctor?" Xiao Jinyan glanced at Chengzi and walked straight to Shen Shuwei's wing. Chengzi was already extremely anxious, but now seeing Xiao Jinyan's attitude, she felt anxious and annoyed. The young master is sick, and his highness is not in a hurry. Chengzi followed up excitedly. Shen Shuwei felt less hungry because of something in his stomach, and his eating speed also slowed down. At this time, she was eating ribs and heard footsteps. She thought Chengzi was back again. She said without raising her head, "They say I'm not sick, but you still don't believe it. I'll be fine in 2 days. I feel at ease." His hoarse voice and his mouth full of food made his words unclear. Xiao Jinyan heard it clearly, and looked at the people who were concentrating on eating, without even noticing who was coming in. He knew that Shen Shuwei was greedy, but he didn't expect that the first thing afterward would be eating. He coughed lightly, "What's wrong with you?" As he spoke, he came to the bedside and looked down at her. Shen Chu chewed for a moment, then slowly raised his head, and saw Xiao Jinyan looking down at her. The look in his eyes reminded her of the look last night. The scene from last night appeared in my mind involuntarily. She had no time to swallow the food in her mouth, which made her feel uncomfortable. She hit her chest desperately with her little hands, ahem. Seeing this, Xiao Jinyan bent down and patted her back. When he saw her coughing, her face turned red. He frowned, "How can you still choke while eating?" Shen Shuwei coughed desperately and couldn't even speak. Xiao Jinyan saw the teacup on the low table, opened the tea lid, picked up the teacup and handed it to her, "Here, drink some water." Shen Chu coughed slightly and felt uncomfortable. When he saw the water, he took a few sips of it and his throat felt much better. At this time, Shen Shuwei was so embarrassed that she silently put down the teacup and wanted to pick up the chopsticks again. Thinking of Xiao Jinyan standing next to her, she looked up at Xiao Jinyan again and asked in her hoarse voice, "Isn't your highness going out to do something?" "I'm back after finishing the work." Xiao Jinyan lifted up his clothes and sat down opposite Shen Shuwei. He looked up at her and saw that her little face was very rosy. Last night, Xiaju was tired. Shen Shuwei just picked up the teacup and wanted to take a few more sips to relieve the embarrassment, but when he heard the sentence, the tea in his mouth almost spurted out. She tried hard to restrain herself from swallowing the tea and replied, "Your highness is also tired." Xiao Jinyan couldn't help but smile, thinking of her kitten-like begging for mercy last night. "Is Xiaju feeling better?" Shen Chu took a bite of rice, puffed out his cheeks and replied, "I have a rough skin and thick flesh, which is very good." Xiao Jinyan smiled thoughtfully, "Really?" Shen Chu nodded slightly and continued to use delicious food to compensate for his excessive exercise last night. "I'll go back after these 2 days." Xiao Jinyan paused here, "Do you still want to go to the snack street tonight?" Shen Shuwei nodded vigorously, "I think so. I will go back in 2 days. Of course I have to eat enough, but I won't be able to eat when I get back to the palace." Xiao Jinyan stood up and looked down at her, "Have a good rest after your meal and recover your strength before going to the snack street in the evening." Shen Chu nodded subconsciously, "I understand." Xiao Jinyan smiled and turned to leave. Shen Shuwei realized the meaning of this sentence belatedly. Looking at Xiao Jinyan's tall and straight posture and the graceful way he walked, It seemed that he was not the person who worked hard last night. She looked at the food in front of her, decided to turn her grief and anger into food, swept the food away, wiped her mouth, and fell asleep. When Chun 11 was putting away the dishes, Shen Shuwei, who was about to close his eyes, saw Chun 11's face slumped, as if she was unhappy. "What's wrong?" "Little master, I just went to invite the doctor. I met His Highness when I went out and told him about the condition of the little master. But His Highness didn't seem to care. Even the doctor didn't let me go to see the doctor. I'm unhappy for the little master." The more Changzi talked, the angrier she became, but she was the crown prince, so even if it was wrong, she couldn't say anything as a slave. Shen Shuwei now knew why Xiao Jinyan asked her if she was feeling better as soon as she walked in. "His Highness knows that I am fine, that's why he won't let you call the doctor," Chun 11 said indignantly, "but the young master's voice has become hoarse like this, and His Highness doesn't feel sorry for the young master." Shen Shuwei nodded vigorously in agreement when he heard the words, "You're right, His Highness doesn't know how to feel sorry for others." "How many times did it happen last night?" Xiao Jinyan still wouldn't let her go. "Just like a tiger that has just eaten meat, it tastes bad and must be full before stopping." After Changzi put away the dishes, she came to the bed again. When she bent down to cover Shen Shuwei with a quilt, she found a bruise on her neck. She subconsciously reached out and peeled off her collar. What she just saw was just the tip of the iceberg. Changzi looked at it for a while and finally found something wrong. "My little master, the battle was so fierce last night. It turns out that this is what it means to have a hoarse voice." Changzi was so ashamed when she thought about her stupid behavior today. Xiao Jinyan walked out of the magistrate's mansion and saw Xiao Jinyu coming back with Miss Han, carrying a lot of things in his hands. Xiao Jinyu saw the prince brother and went up to him with a smile. He immediately noticed that there was a look of joy in the prince's eyes. It is said that people feel refreshed when happy events occur, and the prince's brother must have met a happy event. "Brother, what good news did you encounter? You are so happy." Xiao Jinyan said in a calm voice, "How did you see me happy?" Xiao Jinyu said, "You still say no, I saw you smile." Xiao Jinyan was stunned for a moment, and he doubted the truth of Xiao Jinyu's words. He smiled now. He sank his face, "Where did you go again?" Xiao Jinyu raised the big and small bags in his hand to show the prince brother, "I took Miss Han to buy some cakes and small things. It's a rare trip, so of course I have to buy more things to bring back, so that it's not in vain." Xiao Jinyan glanced at the things in his hand. They were indeed some things for little girls. He looked at Miss Han again. He asked his subordinates to check Miss Han's life experience. He only knew that Miss Han was sold several times, and it was difficult to find out her exact life experience. Han Yan bowed to Xiao Jinyan, "Your Highness, may you be blessed with good health." Xiao Jinyan retracted his gaze to his brother and said, "Remember to bring a few guards with you when you go out." Xiao Jinyu responded obediently, "I know, brother." Yes. Xiao Jinyan retracted his gaze and left the magistrate's residence. Xiao Jinyu looked back at his brother, the prince, and said to Miss Han, "My brother must have encountered something happy, and his eyes are full of joy." Han Yan chuckled, "Prince Yu is really good at talking." Xiao Jinyu was quite proud, "You go back first, I'm going to find my sister-in-law and ask her what happy things my brother encountered." My dear children, good evening. Being cute and acting cute to ask for monthly tickets and recommendation tickets.